Okay, let's talk about maybe the most shocking and exciting to me reveals from all the Kevin Feige interviews, okay? We're over on Variety here. It says, Marvel plans to recast the X-Men and eventually Tony Stark after Avengers Secret Wars, but reboot is a scary word, says Kevin Feige. The all-new X-Men are coming to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and an all-new Tony Stark will eventually join them? Holy shit, that's a crazy first line. Oh my God. In a wide-ranging conversation with the press on Friday, Marvel Studios chief Kevin Feige confirmed that following the events of 2027's Avengers Secret Wars, the company will recast the superpowered mutants for its upcoming X-Men movie directed by Jake Schreier, who did Thunderbolts. Many of the actors who starred in the X-Men movies in the 2000s to 2010s are reprising their roles in 2026's Avengers Doomsday, including Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, Alan Cumming, Rebecca Romijn, James Madison, and Kelsey Grammer. Stewart is also Charles Xavier in 2022's Doctor Strange for the Multiverse of Madness, and Grammer appeared as Hank McCoy in the post-credit scenes of 2023's The Marvels. In future films, however, X-Men characters who appeared in the previous movies will be played by new actors, along with mutants making the big screen debut. The decision echoes changes in the composition of Marvel Comics following the 2015 Secret Wars storyline, which involved multiple timelines collapsing and reconverging, mixing up the characters of the main Marvel timeline in the process. We're utilizing that story, not just to round out the stories we've been telling post-Endgame, just as importantly, and you can look at the Secret Wars comics for where that takes you. It's very, very much sets up the future, Feige said. Endgame literally was about endings. Secret Wars is about beginnings. But Feige was also careful not to categorize the changes as reboot. So scary. Instead, the executive said Secret Wars will serve as a reset for the MCU. Reboot is a scary word, he said. Reboot can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. Reset, singular timeline. We're thinking along those lines. Later, he added, X-Men is where that will happen next. Feige noted that the X-Men comics, with their focus on Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, naturally centered on stories about adolescent characters. They have been a place to tell stories about young people who feel differently or who feel other and who feel like they don't belong, he said. That's the universal story of mutants, and that is where we're going. Good point. Even more intriguingly, Feige also includes that other Marvel characters will eventually be recast, including its most iconic roles like Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. He pointed to many of the other major film franchises that have done the same thing multiple times over, saying Amy Pascal and David Heyman are now searching for a new James Bond, Feige said, referring to the producers of Amazon MGM's upcoming Bond film. David Corenswet, the new Superman, he was awesome. That will always be the case. Feige acknowledged that stars who have retired their original MCU roles, like Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans, have made it difficult to imagine anybody else in their role or in their character's shoes, but it isn't an impossible task. I think it's hard for anybody to do that when an actor has done such a great role, he said. How are they going to ever replace Sean Connery as James Bond, right? At least two legacy actors may still appear in the MCU as well. Asked about his plans for a follow-up to Marvel's Deadpool and Wolverine, Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, Feige in typical fashion made no definitive statements, but also did not close off any possibilities. I think there is more fun to be had with both of those characters, he said, but we'll see. So, wee wah. This is big fucking news, ladies and gentlemen. And I think a pretty big change to what Feige has been saying over the past 3 to 4 years, going back more to that 4 to 5 year time period of when Endgame was first ending and all that, okay? So, a couple of things that we need to say. Number one, clearly mentions X-Men new cast. Now, you might say, we already knew that, and we kind of do. There have been a lot of casting reports via Jeff Snyder, and pretty much everybody he says is going to be an X-Men is being cast, and Spider-Man is a totally different character. But point is, definitely a lot of buzz around younger actors being cast for the X-Men. However, there were also reports that Hugh Jackman was sticking around for 5 to 10 more years. That also appears to be true. So, what is the deal? Well, it seems like for the main MCU, for the main X-Men, you're going to have new characters going after the adolescents. Feige also confirms that Jake Schreier is the director of X-Men in this interview. He did also say that one of the reasons why is because Jake Schreier is really tapped into the youth. That's kind of wild. Like, I don't know what that... Like, do you guys get that from Jake Schreier? Like, all I could see was, like, the meme where he's like, hello, fellow kids, you know? I don't know. Maybe, I guess. I think Thunderbolts was like a soft X-Men thing anyway with all the different powers, the characters. I've spoken about that in the past. I think Jake Schreier's a great pick. But the point is, Kevin's adamant about saying new, young X-Men. And it really will be a reset. And talking about how Xavier's school is a place for adolescent stories, that tracks, but it really makes me think, like, dude, they're doing new Xavier. They're doing new everybody. So this is probably the biggest, like, I guess, proof of that from Marvel Studios. Like, I think after this interview, if you're casting X-Men, if you're fan casting, if you're thinking about the reset, which is going to be so hard, like, I call it the MCU reboot. I guess we could start trying to call it the MCU reset, and we could just say we're plussing everything over here. I don't know. You guys let me know. Point is, I think there were a lot of questions on what that would look like exactly. Now, I'm kind of thinking no legacy actors. Like, you're probably not getting an older Gambit. You're probably not getting, like, a much older Storm. Like, you're probably looking at new, younger cast for the X-Men. Okay, so that's, like, the main thing. But there is, within here, statements about Tony Stark and Steve Rogers being recast as well. Now, before we talk about Tony and Steve, I think the most obvious, glaring thing is T'Challa, right? Like, if Kevin is literally saying we're going to recast characters, including Steve Rogers and Iron Man, then you officially have literally no excuse to not recast T'Challa. Okay, now, this gets a little messy because as far as we understand, they absolutely are going to recast T'Challa. This whole concept of reset versus reboot, though, actually becomes pretty important here. The current rumors are that after Secret Wars, which, by the way, I'm starting to think we're going to get a time jump. I'm starting to think you're going to get Secret Wars, and the X-Men movie might be literally 10 years after Secret Wars. Okay? Not 100% on that, but I'm starting to get that feeling, okay? So anyway, you start off X-Men, youthful characters, and the whole idea is you want new, but not to throw out the old. T'Challa becomes a little tricky because the current plan is they want to have the child, T'Challa II, Toussaint, the secret child that T'Challa had, they want him to be aged up and they want him to be the Black Panther. Okay? So if they do the time jump thing, that's a way to do it. They can do multiversal shenanigans, all that sort of stuff. Okay? This could hint to Marvel perhaps being a little bit more open about T'Challa proper coming back. And if this happens, you have to give a lot of credit to the fans. And I know the recast T'Challa folks can be a little annoying at times. They're kind of like Snyder bro-ish in some ways. However, if this ends up changing, you got to give those guys a lot of credit because they continued to make this a thing. They were very vocal about it. Mainstream YouTubers and content creators have all shifted their opinion on this. When Jeff Snyder first reported that T'Challa was coming back, people were elated, and I think he got it wrong. Like, I think Jeff misreported that it was actual T'Challa back, but Marvel was actually given a great gift because they were able to see how positively people responded to that news. So we know Marvel can adjust on the fly. They change stuff a lot. They like to plus things. You know, a lot of plussing going around there. Maybe they had a full plan, maybe just not a set plan. Okay? Point is, can we figure out whatever nomenclature we have to create to get the real fucking T'Challa back? Like, come on, man. Like, we got to get the real T'Challa back, okay? So that's the first part of this. Unspoken in the article, and yet huge conversation about that in the fandom. But now let's move on. Okay, I think we're all on the same page with that. Now, moving on, Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. I mean, dude, Mackie, you should have made more money. You should not have made those America comments, motherfucker. You were this close to being Captain America for 5 to 10 more years. If you had just kept your mouth shut. No, I'm just kidding. It's probably not Mackie's fault. But the reality is, I don't think we're doing Falcon Cap anymore, man. And by the way, Marvel now has a data point to point to, right? So there's going to be a whole bunch of people that are like, I don't think so. Oh, it's crazy. It's not fair. Bro, they're just going to constantly point to that film. They're just going to point to the box office of that movie. That's all they got to do, right? So I think Captain America, I think Falcon Cap is probably gone. Now, I would assume he's going to get a lot of shine in the next couple of movies, get some closure with Steve. Fans of the character probably still have a lot of good stuff. And it's also possible that he persists into the reboot. He might even keep the mantle of Captain America, although I kind of doubt it. If they recast Steve Rogers, what they really want, guys, is Steve Rogers versus Cyclops. I know a lot of people are like, oh, but what about Anthony Mackie? No, bro. The reason they're doing this is they want Steve Rogers versus Cyclops. Avengers versus X-Men does not hit the same way with Falcon Cap. It just doesn't. I'm sorry. It just doesn't. So they need actual Steve to do AVX properly. So that's probably a big consideration. And in that sense, I do imagine Steve will retain the shield. He will become Cap again. And to be honest with you, the way they've built up MCU Cap with Anthony Mackie, he doesn't even really want the shield. He literally didn't want it. So I think it'll be fine. We're all going to move on. He'll be Falcon or Falcon Cap, and then there'll be actual Cap. It's going to be fine. Tony Stark, maybe even more interesting. This would lead me to believe that Downey as Doom could be sticking around, and therefore they need a new Tony. And oh my God, why would they need a new Tony? Well, because the Tony we had was never actually Tony Stark. Now, I know that's a crazy theory. I've talked a lot about it. I still think it's real. This news does technically line up with that. And I'm sure that would be crazy and a lot of you guys would freak out about it. However, either way, I think Tony Stark is so important to Marvel. There were people back when they were making Endgame that didn't want Tony to die. The Russos didn't want him to die. Iron Man himself, RDJ, originally did not want him to die. It was Kevin that wanted to kill him off. Kind of interesting. Now, Kevin seems to be open to the idea of recasting a character, of doing another run. I got to tell you, that really does make me feel like that theory that I had, and that chat definitely did not help me with at all, and it was all on me. It's all my genius, and chat gets zero credit for it. I really do think this leans into that being real. So we'll see. We're going to see how you guys all react to that. It's pretty crazy. Either way you slice it, though, getting another Tony Stark, I think that's a huge deal. I think it's really important. You want to see Tony Stark with Reed Richards. You want to see Tony Stark messing with the mutants. You want to see Tony Stark dealing with the big cosmic threat of Annihilus and all that crazy shit that's going on. So this is interesting. Another thing here, I want to kind of wrap this part up by saying, I think Superman made this way more attractive. There's something about Superman and the DCU. It's really fresh and new, and it's exciting to speculate about where this could be going. The MCU reset, getting Steve and Tony back, and T'Challa back, hopefully, that also makes it really interesting. I actually would prefer to do videos speculating about that, talking about how that could work, as opposed to like what's going on with the current Avengers, New Avengers debacle in 616 right now. And I think if DC's like realizing, hey, we need Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman, Marvel's probably realizing like we need the X-Men, we need Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four. You know what? I think we need Steve Rogers. I think we need Iron Man. This all tracks. This all makes perfect sense. So it is a change. This is different than what Kevin said even 5 years ago. probably brought on by declines in the MCU overall. The fact that Superman has been successful, sort of with this freshness. All of a sudden, I'm quite interested in the MCU reset. It'll be fascinating. Like, here's another reason why I think this could be really good. What if the first X-Men movie, or maybe the second X-Men movie, is like X-Men and then you see the new Tony Stark? Like, what if we have no idea who the new Tony Stark is, but Kevin is like, oh, hey, for our next X-Men movie, you're going to finally meet the new Tony Stark. Like, that sort of has this built-in excitement. It's taking me back to like phase 1, phase 2, where seeing how this was going to be adapted was a part of the value proposition. That was part of what made it so fun. So I'm actually really positive on this. I think this is great. And I would say, like, that means in like 2 years from now, 3 years from now, we're doing speculation videos on who the new Steve Rogers is. We're doing new speculation on who's the new T'Challa. We're doing speculation on the new Tony Stark. We're doing speculation on what's up with these new Avengers. How are they going to be different? You know, all that sort of stuff. So I love it, man. I think that's the mic drop of the interview. I think it's incredibly significant. And I think as far as setting up a future for Marvel that fans can be excited about, this was the big one. So I wanted to talk about it. Yeah. What do you think?